Good morning, friends. Ann here. Got my cup of coffee, got the Word of God, and today's reading is from Mark chapter 3. I want to focus on verses 31 through 35. Let me read it, and then we're going to talk about it. It says this: Then Jesus' mother and brothers came to see him. They stood outside and sent word for him to come out and talk with them. There was a crowd sitting around Jesus, and someone said, "Your mother and your brothers are outside asking for you." Jesus replied, "Who is my mother? Who are my brothers?" Then he looked around at those around him and said, "Look, these are my mother and my brothers. Anyone who does God's will is my brother and sister and mother." Friends, this was talking about a time that Jesus had been just hounded and surrounded by all kinds of people coming to him for wisdom, for healing, for restoration, all kinds of miracles that he was doing. And it says earlier in the chapter that Jesus couldn't even have a bite of bread to eat. And his family was standing outside where he is, and they were trying to pull him out because they thought that he was crazy. He just kept healing people and surrounding himself by all of these people that were needy. And there were the Pharisees that were trying to accuse him. And we don't know if Jesus's family really had a deep concern for him. I'm sure on some level they did, but they probably were concerned about themselves. This was their family member that was making everybody upset, that was challenging the status quo. And so they were trying to get into him. But we hear that Jesus begins to have a different approach to family. Then instead of claiming just that blood relative, those blood relatives as his family, Jesus expands his family. Instead of being exclusive, he becomes inclusive. Notice that he says, "Anyone who does God's will is my brother and sister and mother." Friends, what does it mean to do God's will? Does it mean that anyone who is perfect is part of Jesus's family? No, absolutely not, because Jesus knows that we cannot be perfect. As a matter of fact, because we cannot be perfect, he goes to the cross and dies and takes on our sin so that through him and through his death on the cross, we can enter into his family. Friends, God's will for us is to believe the one who sent Jesus, to believe that he is who he says that he was, to believe that God sent him so that we could be free. Friends, Jesus was inviting each and every one of us to believe in him. That is the will of God for our lives. And in believing in him, we become his mother, his brother, and his sisters. Friends, I want you to hear that Jesus's family is inclusive, not exclusive. It's not just for a certain group of Jewish believers. It's not just for people who live in this region. It's not just for people who live in this town. It's not just for people that looked like Jesus or talked like Jesus. He was sitting in the middle of this very eclectic group of people who needed him so desperately, many of whom were on the outskirts, that were outsiders in this world. And Jesus pointed at them, and he points at all who believe and says, "You are my family." Jesus's family is inclusive, not exclusive. Have a good day.